Melodic harmonies and groovy riffs flew across the Atlantic to Egypt in the form of the Smithsonian Jazz Masterworks Orchestra to put jazz on the Nile. Jazz, representing freedom and a merging of cultures and sounds, is a perfect ambassador for the United States. And as the jazz orchestra of the nation, the Smithsonian Jazz Masterworks Orchestra are a befitting choice to be taking this music abroad. As the 20th anniversary of the Cairo Opera House's festival season rolls round, a visit from the Smithsonian Jazz Masterworks Orchestra is an exciting way to kick off the festivities. The maestro behind the music is David Baker, internationally famous as a conductor and composer. David is a veteran of the bands of George Russell, Quincy Jones and Maynard Ferguson. As venues go, it is hard to beat a stage with the silhouettes of the pyramids behind it. There is a palpable excitement in the audience at the prospects of the heralded jazz. For many, this is an opportunity which may not be so common in Egypt, but it is certainly one that is met with appreciation. The reactions from the audience really make it worthwhile. This is the reason the band travelled all the way from the States.
They're the greatest in the States, and I think they're one of the greatest bands in the world.
Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald are amongst the legendary names in the Smithsonian Jazz Masterworks Orchestra's extensive repertoire. The Sphinx has heard the melodic sounds of jazz before though, as almost 50 years ago the jazz legend Louis Armstrong put his trumpet to his famous lips and blew a tune for the ancient monuments. With raw energy and bold vibrancy, dancers Chester Whitmore and Shante Johnson seem to encapsulate the music with their moves. Their swinging, colourful style brings joy to the stage, which was met with a warm reception from the crowd. Amongst their concerts at the Pyramids and the Cairo Opera House, the band put on a special performance at the Opera House for a group of children who otherwise wouldn't have such an opportunity. Not only were the school children opened up to live music in a concert hall, they had front row seats, hopefully leaving them with inspiration and ambition.
أول راجل أوبرا هاجي إن شاء الله وهجيب ماما وأخواتي. أول راجل أوبرا أول مرة راجل أوبرا.
As cultural ambassadors, the Smithsonian Jazz Orchestra are spreading music that the children, and many adults too, would not otherwise be aware of, and an aspect of American society that they may not be familiar with. For the jazz lovers of Egypt, the extensive repertoire of classics that the jazz orchestra play was very welcome at home. three of the events had a full house. In Alexandria, there was interest growing in the weeks leading up to the event. While quintessentially American, jazz is played and appreciated around the world. Jazz has unique roots, which may be an answer to its universal appeal and ability to act as a global language, touching people's hearts and souls.
Decided to bring this.
The appreciation and respect for the Smithsonian Jazz Orchestra was reciprocated when the orchestra met some of Egypt's musicians in masterclasses. Along with a few members of his orchestra, David Baker went to the American University in Cairo for some tuition with the music students and held a session in the Opera House.
Comment on the brass, your brass players.
When you see marcato, accent, much more crisp separation. But we hear beginning, middle, and end of note. So, for example, right at the beginning, measure 1 and 2, 2, 3. One. We really hear but beginning, middle, and end. Not too long.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. 1, 2.
The experience and knowledge brought to them by the highly talented musicians was invaluable to the students. Besides imparting technical knowledge, the classes were a great opportunity for one-on-one cultural exchange with the backdrop of a common interest.
The idea came from
Sponsored by the US State Department, the events serve not only to connect the Egyptian public through their generous outreach efforts, but also bridging cultural diversity with jazz as a symbol of its birthplace.